Welcome to the Thoroughly Wrong Project with Lalo and Bob. We appreciate you spending some time with us today. Let's jump right into that weekly dose of things you can disagree with. Take it away, guys.
All right. Good morning. Welcome to the Thoroughly Wrong Project. I've got absolutely nothing this week, man. How about you?
It's one of those weeks.
One of those weeks where you sit down and have a fireside chat and some shit comes up, right? Who started fireside chats?
I have no idea.
Some president. I don't know. How was your week, man?
Good. Pretty good. Just a lot of like we were just saying, because I just started school, so it's a lot of trying to get myself organized for what's to come.
What are you studying again? Psychology?
Yeah, psychology. And I think one of the things that's helping me I think focus better is this is the first semester or really first time that I've taken classes where all of them are interesting to me,
Yeah.
because since I transferred over, I'm technically a junior. So right now I'm taking more of the more specialized classes, my actual major classes.
Yeah.
I'm not taking some random ass geology class that I could not care less for.
Yeah, I had a geology class that was random ass, but then it turned out to be really cool because my geology teacher was super hot. So that wasn't a bad geology class.
Yeah, I had this old dude, so I can't really say the same.
Oh, that sucks, man.
But yeah, so since all the topics and the discussions are interesting to me and
yeah, relevant to your degree. That's
right.
Cool.
So I actually feel like I participate more, and I remember in some classes, especially right now that they're Zoom classes, you'd get a lot of times where the professor would ask something.
Yeah.
And everybody just stays quiet. Nobody says anything.
Because nobody cares.
Yeah. And I mean, that's how I was in some of my past classes where I'll know the answer, but I'm just I don't care enough to unmute myself and say anything.
Well, isn't that a problem with education as a whole? I mean, they tell us that a liberal arts education is really fucking important because it makes us better people somehow. And like you said, you took a geology class, and now when you drive through fucking the canyon, you're like, oh, look, basaltic rock or whatever the hell it is. And ooh, look, striations. And you know what the fuck that means. And so I guess, I don't know, does it help you impress people you're talking to more, or do you think it makes you a better person?
I mean, I think that depends on the person you're talking to. If you're trying to impress a girl, I wouldn't bring up your knowledge of rock formations.
Maybe if she's a nerd, bro.
But no, I see the value in a well-rounded education, and I agree that that's something we should have, But at the same time, I think that's not what's happening at the moment. I think right now we just have this overbloated, unnecessary, just load of classes that people take, especially in college. Because I mean, in my opinion, college should be from the get-go, completely specialized, if you want to learn about earth science and sandstone rocks and sedimentary rocks and whatever,
right,
you should do that in high school. And I'm pretty sure you do that in high school, because I knew what those things were, I had heard them before. But that whole concept of oh, you have to take your general courses in college. I don't think college should consist of any general courses. That information should be given to us, in our K through 12, system.
Right.
And then college should be hey, this is what I want to focus on. This is what I want to do.
Those gen ed classes to me, they were nothing but memorize it, spit it out, and forget it. I mean, That's all.
Right, but my thing is they waste time and they waste money. So like in my ideal world, like a bachelor's degree should only take you 2 years, out of high school.
Right.
And then, a master should take you 4. And basically like condensing down the time and money it takes you to get your degrees, by getting rid of all these like unnecessary and just like, it's almost like bloatware, when you buy like a new computer or something.
Yeah.
You have all these like useless programs installed in it.
You spend 30 minutes or to an hour deleting a bunch of shit.
Yeah. So that's one of the many issues with like our education system, and it'll make things cheaper, for people.
Yeah. But
because to me, that's just like a money grab they're trying to play it off as like, oh no, like it's to make you like a well-rounded person. But it's like, I already know all these things,
But what about in my case where, I started out as an English teacher back in 1990, I guess it was. I started out as an English teacher, and then I was like, I took a couple of history classes, and I was like, oh, fuck, man, I'm in love with history. So I changed my major to history, and then I took this psychology class, which was I didn't have to take it, which led me to, I took a human sexuality class with this, I can't remember the dude's name. He was fucking brilliant. And so that led me to psychology. So if I hadn't have taken that random psychology class, I wouldn't have been led to the thing that I love the most. So there is that. And you could say the same thing about geology, where you're like, yeah, I have no interest in this. And then all of a sudden you get a really good teacher and you realize, well, fuck yeah, that's what I want to do. So can't we say that a lot of those bloated classes that we're calling them do lead a lot of people to careers that they would have never found?
Yeah, but I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that we're not very like during high school, they don't really focus on, hey, what really interests you,
Right.
It's all about like, oh, just get your high school diploma and then you'll figure it out once you're in college.
Well, that's because of core. It's like here's what you have to learn. Here's what the core concept of reading, writing, arithmetic, and you have to learn these things, and everybody gets the same thing. And I think that's going to change, and I think that's dangerous. That they're turning it over to like the Florida thing, where it's like the teachers don't get to decide what to teach, the parents do. That's fucking dangerous.
That's dumb. But yeah, like to me, there should be a lot more like specialization in high school,
Yeah.
And I know like not everybody, like I don't expect everybody at like a 17-year-old high school kid to like know what they want to do like for the rest of their lives. And I know a lot of times it doesn't actually like pan out that way, but I just think it could be a lot more like, it could run a lot more smoothly to the point where we don't need like super obscure, like unrelated courses in college. My thing is saving the time and the money, Yeah. Like, that's the big thing for me. I think it's just, like I said, like a money grab. So these universities are like super, like they're super rich, They have all this money and, everything, like there's parking fees, there's, administrative fees, there's health fees, there's a fee for everything.
I know Taft College has over Taft, they have a advertisement on television commercial that says free parking. And that's like, to me, if you've never been to college, that sounds stupid because you don't know about it. But if you've been to college, free parking, that's like, well, fuck, that's pretty cool. Because I remember the fucking parking fees at CSUB when I was there, man. I was like, good Christ. And you got to park 9 miles away anyway.
Right. And I mean, you could even like make the argument that that could be one of the purposes of community college. It's one of those things where like, oh, well, I'm not exactly sure yet what I like or what really interests me.
Yeah.
And, we could kind of transform how we view community college as a way of like, hey, I'm undecided. Let me take, some random courses here where it's, a lot cheaper. And if I find something that interests me and something that sticks, then I could go down that route,
Yeah. It's funny how things have changed so much because I guess back in the 50s and the 60s, you chose a career and that's what the fuck you did, and now 2022, we're talking about, I read the other day, it was like a person will change their careers 12 to 15 times. That's,
Yeah.
to me, that's fucking unheard of. I mean, because like my stepfather was a salesman his whole life. My grandfather worked for the fucking gas company his entire life. And now people just bounce from job to job and then they get bored and they're like, I think I'll go back and take a few classes and switch careers. And that's really, really fucking cool. And that's something that happens at the community college level. You can take a few classes and suddenly you're qualified for a whole new job. And that's awesome.
Have you ever heard of the term gig economy? Like the gig economy?
Yeah. I don't know what it means.
So basically it's like those jobs that are very they're almost like contractor types, like Uber. Like there's people that are like full-time Uber drivers,
Yeah. Uber,
and they're not
DoorDash, all that stuff.
Right. So they're not really like technically they're not employees of Uber, They're kind of like just a contracted driver, Same with DoorDash. Same with all these jobs that are very like almost where you like create your own like work environment, That's like one of the fastest growing like sectors in when it comes to like job growth.
Yeah, and the least protected,
right?
The least protected of all the jobs.
Yeah, and I think how you mentioned earlier how a few decades ago it was very different that people would just pick something and they would just kind of do that for like 40 years and then retire.
Yeah,
and I think one of the things that has changed this like mindset of like I want to do something, like if I'm going to do something that long, I'm going to try to make sure that I at least enjoy it. I think that's why you get that, people just bouncing around from like job to job and like career to career. They're trying to find something that it's kind of like a balancing act, like you have to enjoy it and it has to like be enough to like provide for you or and, like your family.
Yeah.
Cause like you said, I don't think your relative wanted to be like a salesman, like growing up, like, or,
no,
wanted to work.
Not.
So
he wanted to be a pro basketball player.
So it's like one of those things where I think people are trying to emphasize like like that sentiment of like fulfillment, for themselves.
Yeah. You know what? That is a millennial concept. That's the people.
It probably came from
30s,
them seeing their parents so miserable.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. But the thing is, what that does, it also breeds, what am I looking for? No patience kind of thing too, because people who are in a job for their life, like my grandfather and my stepfather, I noticed that growing up with them, they always talked about the next level in that company, the next level, I'm going to get, like my stepfather went from a salesman for a store to a salesman for a chain of stores to a salesman for a chain of stores in a state. And then he worked for Motorola or Quasar Television. You remember those? Motorola?
Yeah.
Yeah. And suddenly he was the salesman for everybody, the lead salesman for everybody west of the Mississippi. So back in that day, if you were going to get a job, it had stepping stones that you could raise up. In today's economy, no, you're a worker bee or you just change jobs. I mean, you can't work your way up. Like at the county level where we work, there's like 2 stages or 3. You can be, recovery specialist 1, recovery specialist 2, recovery specialist 3. That's pretty much it. That's where you're going to stay unless you go into management.
Yeah. And I've read that people actually make more money when they kind of like jump around like that, especially when it comes to like higher like careers that require like a higher education.
Yeah.
Like for example, like most county jobs, you know how we have like steps and stuff, and you get your like 5-cent raise like every year. People on average actually make more money if you stay. I think between 2 and 4 years at like a single place, kind of, learn, get your experience, and then use that experience and apply somewhere else where like that initial pay jump is like far greater than all the small raises you would have gotten if you would have stayed there. So it's very like beneficial for the individual to like not stay, at least in their younger years, to not stay at a single place for that long. It benefits them like monetary wise.
Isn't that funny how it's flipped around? So used to be stay and you'll make more money, and now it's leave and you'll make more money. It's completely opposite. But I think there's less, like I forgot to make a point. There's no patience anymore. It's like, I want a job where I can make a difference, and I don't feel like I'm making a difference here. I think I need to leave. And it's like, well, you've only been here like 11 months. What the fuck do you want? You can't, in order to make an impact in anything, you have to stay for a while and get to know the job and get to know the people, and then you can make an impact. It seems like to me, and I'm not saying anything bad about millennials. In fact, probably they're my favorite demographic. Yeah, they're my favorite demographic because they are philosophical, a lot of them, and a lot just want to help, and they want to make this impact of good, and that's really cool, man. It's way better than the people my age are just fucking fat, slow, and pissed off. I mean, that's all they are. So
yeah, I think that millennial generation, it's kind of like one of the first ones that's like breaking like all these like society norms,
yeah,
and not trying to like, hey, just do what our parents and grandparents and great grandparents did.
Yeah. Well, the funny thing is, dude, I have a millennial mindset, and that I'm going to be 57 in April, but I have this. If you went back over the history of my jobs, I've never stayed more than 4 or 5 years in any job. I've changed careers. I've been everything from a fucking glass blower, truck driver, work in the psychology field. I've done everything you can imagine because I get bored easily. And I think that's what is not a problem. Let's not call it a problem. It's a symptom of being a millennial is you just get bored. You're like, fuck, I don't want to do this anymore. I've mastered this and I got to roll, so I go take a couple classes or look back over your resume and find out something that you can do and change jobs. I can't tell you how many times I've changed jobs, and it's not because I'm a bad employee, dude. I've never been fired, and I've only been written up once in my entire life. So I guess I guess that's when I got hired at the county, the supervisor said, you're going to be working with a lot of millennials. And she said it with like trepidation in her voice. And I was like, that's fucking cool. That's awesome. That's awesome because I hate people my age. And I really do. And I'll say that over and over again. And whoever I piss off, I piss off. I hate fucking people in their 50s. They've given up, man. They have. They've given up. It's like this whole mindset of, well, I got to do what I got to do. And life shouldn't be like that.
Yeah. And it's one of those things where Well, we don't know yet if that's like necessarily like a good or bad thing, like that that new mindset, that you just mentioned.
Yeah.
Of kind of like, oh, I'm bored and I want to try something new. Like in the long run, does that benefit you or like does that hurt you?
Well, it's hurt me tremendously, Lalo.
It's hurt you.
Oh yeah, definitely. I'm 57 years old, man. I have no retirement. I have no time in a company where I can retire and get a pension. There is no time left for me to do it either. I have spent my entire life leaping from job to job, trying to find this satisfaction that millennials seek, this sense of worth and sense of meaning in a job. I fucking hate working. I can't tell you. I No, don't get me wrong. The thing that I've done in the last 15 years is great. I've worked with youth offenders, um, homeless people, mentally ill people. Uh, I worked at BARC with the handicapped. I've spent the last 10, 15 years of my life, or 15, immersed in helping people. But the problem that I have is I jump from BARC to Presley Ridge to the county, back to BARC, back and forth. So I never ever got like, here's 15 years or 20 years at this one place, and now we're going to pay you this pension. I don't have that. I have none of that. So what I've actually done is fuck myself out of a decent pension or a decent retirement. So there is that, and that's going to happen to a lot of fucking people.
Yeah, and I could definitely see like the benefits of like that, like jumping around and trying to find something that you're really passionate about and that you want to do for a long time.
Yeah.
Like in your 20s and like, even to like your mid 30s or whatever. But I think, like you said, at some point you have to kind of like stick to something and then
Yeah.
use it. Because I mean, that's like the system we live in where you have to, by the time you're like 60, 65 and you retire, if you don't have like anything to like fall back on, like you're kind of fucked,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I have a plan. It's not like I'm gonna. I have a
become
plan.
homeless.
Yeah, become homeless. Yeah, I'm gonna become homeless, and then I'm gonna, wait for the van to drive by and give me some water. So yeah, no, I have a plan. I'm actually coming back to the county, or I'm trying. I
Yeah.
jumped through a lot of hoops last week and the week before that, and now I'm back on the list and everything. But my plan is to get back, and then I'm going to go back to school and become an MFT or an LMFT, and then that way I can work for 8 years at the county, and then with that uh, experience, then I can continue to work like a gig economy for people here and people there, and continue to be a therapist. I could be a therapist well into my 70s, and even
Yeah.
if it's part time.
And that was one of the things that like that was even one of the things that was into like my consideration of what I wanted to do like uh long term,
Yeah,
like for some reason I wanted to pick something, one that I liked and two that I could use like in my later years um that doesn't like wane away,
yeah,
like most like manual like physical jobs like, oh yeah, I could have worked in the oil fields, I don't even have to go to school right now. I could go work in the oil fields and make a shit ton of money.
right.
But you can only do that for so long, especially when it comes to like manual and physical like demanding jobs.
Yep.
Eventually like your body starts to like break down and you can't do the same things you used to be able to do. And if you during that time there, if you didn't really like move up the chain of command to a point where like you're like a manager, like a supervisor or whatever, at some point they're just gonna like kick you to the curb, and then like move on to somebody else.
Yep.
So I kind of wanted something that I could use, in my like 60s and 70s, even like you said, even not necessarily because you would need to, but even if you just wanted to and like do something like part time
Yeah.
and something like a therapist or like some of that, like those like human service careers,
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
very flexible when it comes to like working after retirement. Like a ton of people, they'll retire from their, main job and then just do something part-time, and they're still like really like comfortable.
Yeah. It's going to bring in the money that I to supplement in it. And and everybody's ha ha ha. They laugh at like hell when I say it, but I have a younger wife. She's 16
Mhm.
years younger than I am. And although that wasn't my plan, it was like, I'm going to marry a young girl so I can fuck off in my old age. No, that's not what it is. It just turned out that after you do that, you're like, oh, okay, when I retire, she'll still be working full time. So that's going to help. And then working part time. But it's that millennial mindset of, and the gig economy of how that works and all that shit. It's like, I can't imagine. I just can't imagine working the same job for fucking 20 years. That sounds like I'd rather hang myself.
No, I mean, to be honest, like when I remember I first started at the county with CPS, and I like the job, like I like the work, and I was there for like a year and like maybe like 3 or 4 months, so like close to a year and a half. And I remember like when I left, it felt like I had been there like forever, and it had only been like a year and a half.
Yeah.
So like, and I remember telling myself like, how the hell? And they're like, there was some. I had coworkers that had been there like in that same position that I was working for like like over 5 years. And I was like, how the hell do people like stay here for like over 5 years?
Yeah.
And
Same.
and it's not even that. It's like, I mean, for me personally, I just wanted to like, I wanted like a change of scenery. I
Yeah.
still like the work. I still thought the work was like good work. And like it was productive and fulfilling. But I don't know. For me personally, I just wanted like, oh, like let's try something else.
Yeah.
Like I know this isn't all like this field has to offer. I want to kind of. I think that's what my goal is right now. Like I wanted to like get a taste of like different fields to see if I was like if one was like pulling me, harder one way or the other.
Yeah.
Um,
That's exactly the thing. I think that if I become a therapist, or when I become a therapist, that you can be a therapist for the homeless at the county level, and then something comes open at the prison, you can move over there, and then something comes open. You can take your therapy degree and jump all over the county. You're still within the same umbrella. You're still under the county. You're still accruing time and accruing retirement. It's just not the same fucking people and the same fucking thing day in and day out.
yeah, and I think that, like you said, that's like a millennial mindset of like,
Yeah.
I want to try something new. Uh, you might be bored, or some people just do it out of like curiosity.
Yeah.
Like, hey, I want to see what this is like. Maybe if I don't like it, okay, I'll move on. But if I do.
And there it is. That's exactly the way I think, because I thought as a uh, substitute teacher, I thought, well, I'll just go ahead and go to school and become a full-time teacher. So I quit my job. I got in school. I was in school less than 3 weeks when I was like, fuck no, not even. And I dropped out. And now I'm coming back to do the thing that I should have done a long time ago. And I suspected that I should have. But, you got to try new things. You got to, as a millennial, the ones that I talk to all the time, they talk about following their heart. And that's like, I get it. Maybe I want to be a teacher. Maybe I'm going to go try. It's going to cost me a few $1,000s. Who gives a shit? But as far as, people from my generation, for them to quit their careers, spend a few $1,000s to fail and find out, and then be left with nothing, that's terrifying to them, because it's fun, Lalo. It's funny. It's people my age. The only thing they're worried about is a future that they can't control. Yeah, that's all they ever worry about, and I don't have that worry. I mean, there are certain times I've laid awake and thought, fuck, I don't have retirement. What am I going to do? And I just laugh about it.
Is that like a maniacal laugh, or like I'm losing it?
No, it's just a little giggle. Like, well, I've made it this far, and you look back over. If you look back over your life, you come to these points in time where you're just panicky about what the fuck you're going to do. What the fuck am I going to do? What am I going to do? And it always works out. And I got this life lesson from this homeless guy in Los Angeles. I stopped and I gave him money and I talked to him, and he was dressed in a onesie that had a big teddy bear on the front. It was, and he was clean, and I said, you know what happened? Because I've always talked to the homeless. I've always talked to the mentally ill. To tell me, what's your story, man? How'd you get here? Because it's always been fascinating to me. And he said, I'm just having a hard time. It'll work out. And that one simple little statement stuck with me so long. I'm like, here you are sleeping on the fucking sidewalk, and the only thing you have to say is, I just hit a bump in the road. It'll be fine. And I do think like that. It's like, if a lot of people were in my shoes right now, wondering if they're going to get their old job back, and they'd just be in a fucking panic. But I'm like, nah, it'll work out. If I got lots of skills. I've done lots of things, and there's a second point that I can bring up about millennials. They have tons of fucking skills, Lalo. They've done tons of shit, and if they could get the mindset that I have, but I think that comes with age, where it'll work out, because I know a lot of 30 to 40-year-olds are freaking out because they've done the same thing I did, only they still have that same thought of, what the fuck am I going to do? I don't have a house. I'm 35 years old. I don't have a house. I have a car payment. I have 2 kids. What the fuck am I going to do? If you just thought, man, I got a lot of skills. I've done a lot of things, and I can figure this out. And that's where that giggle comes from. And, I can figure this out, Lalo. That's no big deal. And even if I don't, what's the worst thing can happen to me? I'll die. And I'm going to die anyway. So, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm glad you have a plan, but don't ever think that plan is concrete, man. That's all I got to say to people. You have a plan? That's great. What are you going to do when the car hits you?
Yeah, I've always been a very I would say sometimes overly cautious person, where I'm always thinking okay, if this doesn't happen, then what do I do?
Yeah,
trying to have contingency plans in place. So, and I think that's how I base a lot of my big life decisions. I'll use risk management, risk assessment.
Okay.
And should I do this? If this doesn't work out, how's it gonna affect me?
Did you learn that in some fucking class you didn't want to take, Lalo?
No, I learned that in my high school AP psychology class.
I was just fucking with you, man.
So that's where you should learn. I think that's where you should learn things like that, and critical thinking and problem solving. Those are the real things that are kind of going to get you through life,
Yeah.
Even though they don't seem like it. I've never used Y = MX + B. I've never used the point float formula in my life. And I guarantee I never will.
No, don't say that, man, because I used to say that shit about geometry, and then I became a fucking roofer, and everyone was like, well, I don't know how we figure this out. I'm like, well, I got my geometry book out, and I'm like, let's figure out this. So yeah, some of that shit comes in handy. One of these days, someone's going to go, hey, dude, what's a Y over, and you'll say it, and then it'll come to pass.
Literally the only other time I could think of that being useful is like if you have kids and you're helping them with their homework of them learning things that they're never going to use in their life.
Well, then you're a hero, Dad. Right?
Yeah. So it's we'll see, but yeah, I think we're having like a big like in a lot of sectors, there's a big like mindset like shift going on, you know.
Uh-huh.
And I think a lot of them are kind of like connected in some way, you know, like that feeling of you know, self-worth is connected with, oh, well, what do I want to do for, you know, the rest of my life. And I want to feel not only fulfilled, but like if I'm going to work for a company or department or something, like I want to feel like appreciated, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. What does
So I think
that mean to you? I
what
mean, I know
feeling
that
appreciated,
no,
fulfilled.
the other one, fulfilled. I think a lot of people, a lot of us are searching for this sense of meaning and fulfillment, but we don't know what it means. We're searching for something. We're searching for something. It's like we'll recognize it when we see it, kind of thing. Is that
Yeah,
it?
I think to me it's pretty much like if you could wake up and, you know, oh, I have to go to work and I like absolutely like hate it.
Yeah.
I think like you're at least on the right path, you know. And you know, like for me, like I hate waking up, you know, in the mornings. Like when I wake up, like the first thing I think is like I want to go back to sleep.
Yeah.
So it's not necessarily like, oh well, you hate waking up, so how can you like love your job that much if you don't even want to get up? But I think that's a little different than like, hey, I hate what I'm doing, or like just the thought of going into work. Like I don't like it, and you know I'm already like looking forward. As soon as I walk in, I'm looking forward to the end of the day. Um,
Yeah.
I
As
think
soon
you
as
should
you
probably
walk in, you're looking forward to the end of the week, basically.
right.
Yeah.
And so you know, I think that just sentiment of like, hey, like I like what I'm doing. Yeah, sometimes it's hard, and sometimes you know I don't want to do it, and that's fine. Um, but I think like overall, I'm comfortable where I am, and I like what I'm doing, and I like you know whatever sector maybe. Like for me, it's um, like I'm very like attracted to like the public sector, you know. Like I like helping people. I like seeing somebody like the populations I've always worked with. It's people in like in very low places, you know.
Yeah.
And when I'm able to see like the progression, and you can see like actual like differences making like making like they're making leaps, you know, in their life. For people that are in very low places, like very little changes can mean a lot, you know.
Yeah.
Like, hey, I went a whole week with like doing my chores, you know, or I did my laundry today, or I did this, and it may seem like something very small and you know meaningless, but for a lot of people, like that stuff's really hard.
Yeah. It's just, I was just laughing because it seems like, it's like to a lot of people, that's setting the bar very low, you know? It's like, yeah, it is. But what they don't understand is you and we've been down here for a while, and I don't say down here disparagingly at all. I mean, there are obvious tiers in community, and there's tiers in levels of mental health. So when somebody who hears you say, I did my laundry this week, and you're like, well, I do my fucking laundry every day. What the hell's the difference of that? It's like, you don't understand this person. That's a step towards doing their laundry every day. You know,
Yeah.
yeah, it's really difficult to explain to people sometimes what I have done for a living is like, you know, I helped a guy keep the same job for a month, and everybody's like, so I've been in my job for 3 years. It's like, well, you don't understand. This guy this guy doesn't understand about working for a month. And I get it, man. There's a great sense of satisfaction down here, but as far as being fulfilled, I don't think my job would ever fulfill me, Lalo. Work is a means to an end for me. Everything else that work allows me to do, like art and rock climbing and skydiving and playing guitar and traveling, going to art museums, all the things that work allows me to do outside of work, that's where I get fulfilled. Work is nothing more than a heartbeat for me. It's necessary, but it's something I don't really put my life into. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, I like everything. Like sitting on a boogie board waiting for a wave to come. That's fulfillment to me, but I wouldn't be able to do that if I didn't go to work every day.
Yeah. And I mean, that's fine. That's another way of looking at fulfillment, like that life fulfillment is like, hey, I don't necessarily like super love and I'm not like super like enthusiastic about my job, but I know that with that job, I'm able to do all these other things that truly do like fulfill me and make me happy.
Yeah. Is that a millennial thing?
What that like mindset or
Yeah, that work is just something I have to do in order to have all this other stuff, because I see a lot of millennials who do a lot of things outside of work.
yeah, I think there's like a few ways to look at it, I guess. The way I look at it is I'm gonna spend a lot of time like at work,
Yeah.
For most people, like your 9 to 5 or, you spend like 8 hours minimum at one place. So one way to do it is, or one way to look at it is, hey, I'm gonna, work, try to get, for a lot of people, it's like money, like resources to do all these other things outside of work that I truly enjoy, that I truly like. Maybe you like being like an artist or something, or making music, and you're kind of just doing that like in the background because it doesn't, things like that don't really like take off right away.
Right.
And that's what you truly enjoy, and that's what's truly like fulfilling to you. So I love doing that. So I'm gonna, put up with this because I love doing that, And then the other way of looking at it is, which I think I'm more in this category is, well, I'm gonna be here, 8 hours a day. The fact that I'm gonna be here for, a large portion of my time and like my life technically, I'm gonna try to at least make it something that I enjoy,
Yeah. Do you look at your bed the same way?
What do you mean?
Like, you're going to spend 8 hours a day in your bed. Do you spend, have you spent a proper amount of time and money picking out the thing that will make you most comfortable, where you're going to spend 1/3 of your life? Or do you just like, I need the cheapest mattress available because I don't want to spend the money?
No, I think I'm like, you have to be smart about that one, because like you said, especially when you get older, if you get a shitty mattress, you're gonna regret it in the long run.
Okay. Well, I'm just saying, let's say you got 1/3 of your life at work, 1/3 of your life in bed, and 1/3 of your life doing the things that you want to do. So choose your third, right?
Yeah. So I guess if you look at it that way, I'm trying to like that third of you sleeping, like you're asleep, right? But those other 2/3, I'd rather try to maximize like my happiness and like fulfillment out of those 2/3.
That's cool.
Man. I could either like hyper focus on like the 1/3 that I spend outside of work, and like, hey, I'm just gonna like grind and do whatever job it takes to like make money, and so I could enjoy this 1/3 outside of work, to its like maximum potential. Or you could be like, hey, I'm gonna try to, it's like a little bit more balanced, like, hey, I'm gonna do something I like, And at the same time, I'm still going to be able to like comfortably like enjoy my time outside of work.
You're not a millennial, are you?
Yeah, I think I'm barely like at the cutoff. I think the
Yeah,
cutoff was like 95, and I was
95.
94. Yeah, I was born in 94. So
Oh, that's how coincidental, man. The cutoff for baby boomers was 65, and I was born in 65. So a lot of people don't consider me to be a boomer. The whatever's after boomer, I don't know. I don't even know. I'm generation. I'm the lost generation because I grew up in the 70s and we all just did drugs and had sex and didn't worry about the future. And what we bred is the fucking millennials.
yeah, I think it says millennials are from 77 to 95. That's a
Yeah.
pretty big, like, it's almost what, 20 years almost?
Yeah. Yeah. I I never really thought about what we just talked about. Millennials, I've always liked them. I I don't like for a while I didn't like the attitude of, the whole changing jobs and everything because I was from a different generation. But in order to grow as a person, as you grow older, you have to intake other people's ways of life and accept them, which my parents couldn't do. They couldn't accept me, and they certainly don't accept millennials. They have that whole lazy motherfuckers don't want to go to work and all that. But
I think that's every generation about the generation after them. Like
well,
if you talk to anybody, they'll tell you
the ones
that.
that came after World War II, that the World War II generation, the ones that fought in that war, I think they do have a point.
I mean, if being lazy is considered like not fighting a whole ass like world war, then I'm okay with being lazy.
Well, how old are you? 27?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a ripe old age for the coming war in Europe.
And I think the cutoff point for like the draft is like, I think it's 27 or 26. But you can't get drafted if you're older than that. So if it starts up now, I'm fine with that. I ain't tripping.
You're fine. You're not tripping.
Yeah. I'll let the younger generation, that TikTok generation, they could go to Ukraine.
Well, that's a good thing about if they do go into battle, if they do have to go to combat, the firefights will only last like 15 to 20 seconds.
So then they just get distracted and do something else.
Exactly. Oh man. Look at what we just did though. We fucking put down the TikTok generation, and they have their things, they're fucking pretty crafty, a lot of them.
Yeah, I think every generation has like their they like bring something new to the table,
Yeah.
Because it's kind of hard because they have like a fresh like way of looking at things, and I mean it's natural for like generations to kind of look back and see like mistakes and see things that they like and see things that they don't like,
Yeah.
and kind of change how they view their life in the world.
But that's not just generational, that's about everything. That's about like art has gone through, tons of
like eras and stuff.
The modern art and realism and cubism and, surrealism. And it goes through these periods where the surrealists grow and they see what the realists did. And so they make it surreal. And then the surrealists morph into cubists. And so as human beings, it's not just, business has morphed and art has morphed and sports has morphed and every generation that comes along, the artists and the musicians within all that, they change everything again, and it's beautiful. I see too many people, especially we'll say the 60s was the most terrible era for it, maybe the 20s too, when when you're talking about the way music changes, and then everybody within a certain age group rejects rock and roll or rejects the Flappers or we shouldn't do that. If rock and roll would have came along and everyone would have said just, oh, they took the blues and they changed it, and now the blues and jazz and country western and how everything just morphed together and it comes up with these new things. We should accept that and enjoy it, because it's just what we are. We're human beings. We take things and we make beautiful things out of the things that we have. And that, I wish we could see that, but we can't. And the older we get, like I'm getting in my 60s, this is my time to start rejecting things. And I'm not doing it, man. I'm not doing it at all. I refuse.
I think it's almost like human nature for people to like kind of like reject like newer things, you know, because that signifies change and people don't like change.
Yeah.
So it's
a threat.
Yeah. So, I mean, I agree that we shouldn't do that, but I also see that that's a very hard thing to change, you know?
Yeah. Isn't that, you know, to take it back to this conversation, back to where we started, millennials are pretty good at accepting change because that's all they fucking do.
Yeah.
And so
maybe we're on a path of like it becoming easier to do, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, when I got in my 40s, you know, it's not, and I discovered alternative rock and grunge and all that shit. I missed that whole area of the 90s because I was one of those stubborn motherfuckers that if it wasn't Pink Floyd or Led Zeppelin or, you know, I was like, fuck it, I'm not listening to it. I did do that for a while in my life, probably a decade. I spent the 90s really working hard and starting a business and rejecting all new music and doing that thing that my parents did. But then I discovered, you know, Pearl Jam and Nirvana and all these cool bands, and my life began to morph. And especially after I went to college is when I began to accept newer things into my life. And I realized that change is not a threat. I don't have to break all my fucking Led Zeppelin records because I listen to Pearl Jam now. Led Zeppelin's not going anywhere, you know? They're still there. And I think what we have to do as humans, you know, I wish I could sit down with my dad and say, you know, I haven't talked to the fucker in like 5-6 years now. And I wish I could sit down with him because he's a pretty cool guy. I'd like to sit down and say, listen, because I'm not you, because I don't think like you, I'm not a threat to you. I should be a lesson to you. I could teach you things because I learned from you how to work hard. Now you need to learn from me how to appreciate not working hard. But they're so wrapped up in this culture and this mindset of you don't think like I do, so therefore you're a threat. And I wish I could sit down with him and say, listen, man, I love you to death. And I think you're funny. And I think you're intelligent and wise in a lot of areas, but you need to accept things that aren't like you because it's not a threat. It's just an opportunity to learn, and they don't take it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I think a lot of that has to do with that. They don't see it that way, you know? They don't see it as the opportunity to learn.
Well, I didn't see it either, Lalo. That's the thing. That's what I'm saying. When I was approaching my 40s, there was this mindset of, if you're not like me, I don't have time for you. So, yeah, maybe. Wow, I'm having an epiphany over here. Maybe I need to call this stupid son of a bitch and tell him.
That's usually when you have the biggest like epiphanies, when you kind of talk to yourself and hear your own words like out loud.
Yeah, which is what therapy is, right?
Mm-hmm.
Fuck. Well, if I tried to explain to him what therapy was, I'd be a pussy. So, and we have talked about that before.
Just take it one step at a time.
I guess. I texted him on his birthday, so yeah, he texted me back the next day, and you could almost feel the begrudging feel of the text.
Yeah, I think it's hard to like you texting him, it kind of makes him feel like, oh, well, like he's like putting differences aside and like, still texting me.
Yeah.
So like if you don't reply, I think it makes you feel like, oh, like I'm acting like a child, or I'm like immature and and people don't want to feel that way. So
I think, and I'm sure you have older people in your life that, you seem to be a different person than me. That you seem to be more accepting and more tolerant of people than I am. And I guess that comes from where I grew up, where you grew up, and the culture you grew up in. But I think he seriously wants to talk to me, but he won't do it.
Won't
Exactly. This mindset of he needs to communicate with me. And if he doesn't do that, and then I'll text him back, and it always comes to we have a buildup of communication to where it gets to the point where I'll call him, and then inevitably I will say something fucking wrong. It happens every single time, and then he'll stop talking to me again. So I guess I should enjoy the times he's talked to me, right?
Yeah. But yeah, it's like a balancing act with a lot of like relationships like that,
Yeah. I like how we talk about things like that. And you could put it back, like you take the millennial mindset and shoot it back over an entire culture, and mindsets and familiar relationships come from culture, the way people grew up. And if we would stop being ego driven,
Good luck with that.
Yeah, really. And what the fuck is that all about? It's like, shit, man. I guess we should just be happy and stop being millennials.
I mean, there's a lot of because there's a lot of like emotions that go into that, like you said, it's not be like ego driven, and part of that is, well, people have an ego because if you don't want to seem like wrong, you don't want to come off as wrong, because then a lot of people, like, you'll feel ashamed,
Yeah.
And people don't like feeling ashamed because, it's that feeling of feeling ashamed. So,
but that inner feeling of feeling ashamed is somehow easier to deal with than making it a reality and putting it out there, because obviously he does. And obviously I have some feelings of guilt of things that I'm doing. And if we just got together and one of us was brutally fucking honest, without being hurtful, without attacking, but just saying, you know what, we need to put this fucking shit aside, because all this stuff that we're not all the reasons that we're not talking are fucking stupid. They're based in feelings and emotions and thoughts, half thoughts. And if you would just tell me why you're not talking to me, maybe I could explain myself. That kind of shit. But that's what therapy is. And that's the thing that I think most people from my culture, that's why they reject therapy, because it's talking about the way you feel. And you don't talk about the way you feel from my culture. You just don't. It's just not a thing that we do.
Yeah, and like I said, I think that's one of those, it's a very like slow shift, but you could definitely see like the movement happening,
Yeah.
Like I've never heard people talk about like therapy and like mental health as much as, in the past few years. So I think it's becoming a lot more more normal, you know, to like care for
Normalized and
yourself.
acceptable. Yeah, I
Yeah.
guess. I guess I have family in pockets of cultures all over the place. So, and they're all different, and it's still not accepted in West Virginia. You know, it's still not something they do. It's still pull yourself up by your bootstraps, stop complaining, stop being a pussy, and stop crying and get to work. And I find that mindset in myself in certain areas of my life, like fitness. When people ask me how, you know, I work out every single fucking day for an hour and a half, and people are, how do I do that? I'm just like, just fucking do it. Just get to work. And I don't know how I do it. And I think that mindset comes from where I wasn't allowed to talk about how I didn't want to do something. I just did it. I wasn't allowed to say, I don't like this. So like what we talked about before, if you have a negative mindset on millennials, you're going to pick out every single thing that's bad about them. But like we just spent an hour talking about how a lot of those things we talk about in a negative sense are very positive. Very positive changes are coming. So if I look at my life as coming from that Appalachian culture, a lot of good has come out of that, dude. That hard work, mental attitude that I have. So there's good and bad in everything, and I think it's how you look at it. Like we said, the
Yeah.
millennials, Gen Xers, baby boomers, you know, whatever. Each demographic has their negative viewed attributes, but all those attributes have positive things that we could all learn from millennials. We could all learn from the baby boomers. We could all learn from Gen Xers. We could all, you know, and if you take that out of those demographics, we could all learn from artists, and we could all learn from musicians, and we could all learn from each other. But somehow the knowledge that they have is threatening to us. And why do we do that? I guess because we're humans, and we don't, like you said, we don't like change. And why the fuck don't we like change? Because it's such a beautiful thing, you know? It's like you say you hate your fucking job, and then the thing comes around. It's like, oh, you don't have to do that anymore. You don't have to work like that. You don't have to stay in that job. And we're like, well, fuck you, man. This is the way I've been. I can't change my job. Well, millennials do it. Well, fuck millennials. That's beautiful, man.
It's just like a constant like interweb of generations. Like I think that's one of those things that's gonna like stick for a long time, where like the generation after you're always gonna think like, oh, like they don't know what they're doing, or
Yeah.
you know. But I think that just
But they don't know what they're doing.
and
That's the thing.
I think a lot of that sentiment comes from people kind of look back like, hey, when I was fucking, 22, I didn't know what the fuck I was doing. So there's no way this 22-year-old knows what the fuck they're doing. So I think that's where a lot of that comes from. Like, I know what it's like to be, that young and thinking, whatever you're thinking.
When I was 22, I had 3 kids. I just got out of the Marine Corps. I owned a house. I had a wife. It was like I was 60 years old all of a sudden. All right, man. Hey, I came into this one with no preset thoughts, but I think this defining of millennials has helped me a lot, because I guess I am one at heart, and I guess that's why I get along with so many of them, because I don't judge them. I think they're awesome, So millennials are okay.
We accept you as an honorary millennial.
I'm an honorary millennial. Oh, thanks, man. I'll try not to fuck it up with sexual harassment later in life.
Yeah, don't do that.
You know how the Harvard gives the honorary doctorate to like Bill Cosby, and later on, you're like, well, we're going to take that back, Bill.
That's Dr. Bill Cosby to you.
So I'll try to keep my honorary. Can you give me some kind of piece of paper with honorary millennial on it? I'd appreciate it, man.
It's very on brand for millennials. Just instead of an actual like honorary diploma, it's just written on a piece of paper.
Oh yeah, just I just get the recognition, and that's the thing. You don't need the piece of paper. You could just have somebody call somebody and say, yeah, he's a millennial. What are you gonna do this week, man? Study?
Yeah, I have some. Well, I did most of my assignments. I just have like this like page reflection that I have to do, and
That's
then
cool.
I'm gonna watch the games later today. So
Oh yeah.
should be a couple good ones.
As long as Kansas City doesn't win, I'll be fine.
Well, that's gonna be hard because they're like the favorite. So
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. I'd like to see the Bengals in San Francisco again.
I would rather see the Bengals and Rams just because I'm not a big fan of San Francisco.
Yeah, but the Bengals in the San Francisco will be a repeat of
Like 30
'89.
years ago.
89, and let's see the Bengals and the 49ers, and let's see the Bengals win it this time instead of 49ers. Joe Montana's gone, so
I mean, the Niners have lost their last 2 Super Bowls, so
I really don't care who
itching.
wins as long as it's not that fucking prick Mahomes.
You don't like him?
I don't like him, man. I can't. And it's not, I can't put my finger on it. It's just like, I don't like his fucking wife with complaining about, oh, people are persecuting me. Shut the fuck up. You sprayed a bunch of people with champagne, probably some kids. People don't want to
Like
go home.
10 degrees.
Yeah, exactly. And she's like, oh, they're persecuting me. Oh, okay, Snowflake. I'm sorry.
I think that's why people don't like or want the Chiefs to lose. Not necessarily because of Mahomes, but because of like her and like his brother too. People hate on like shit on his brother so much because like he just like stands on the sideline and does like TikTok dances and
Does he?
yeah, he's very like flamboyant. I don't know if he's gay or not, but he's like just very like flamboyant and like he's like this super tall, like scrawny dude. And like his brother's like the super athletic, like quarterback,
Yeah.
So people are always like shitting on him. It's like, imagine your brother being like the best quarterback in the game and you're over here on the sideline doing TikTok dances.
Well, he's not the best quarterback in the game. The best quarterback in the game is from the Bills. So
Josh Allen.
yeah,
He's up there.
he's up there. I mean,
They're probably like 1A and 1B right now.
well, see, from my age and my generation, do you know who the $6 million man is?
Who?
The $6 million man.
That sounds like a Joe Namath type of.
No, it was a television show, The Bionic Man.
Oh.
Yeah.
No.
It was a television show called The $6 Million Man, and he got in this car accident, he crashed his plane, and he had bionic legs and bionic arm, and he could run 60 miles an hour, and he could leap, and all. He's this fucking superhero kind of guy. It cost $6 million to build him. Well, fucking Mahomes is worth $500 million. He should be able to fucking fly, in my eyes. All right, man.
Sometimes it looks like he does.
So what's your prediction for today?
I always have like a brain like prediction and then like a heart prediction.
Right.
My brain prediction tells me the Chiefs and the Rams are gonna advance. But my heart would want it to be the Bengals and the Rams.
Okay.
The Rams have lost twice to San Francisco twice this year. They've already lost. So
yeah.
It's hard to beat a team 2 times. It's very hard to beat a team 3 times.
3 times, exactly. The odds begin to stack up against you, especially in the level when you get into the playoffs. So yeah. Well, my head says it's San Francisco and Kansas City, but my heart is Bengals. Come on, man.
They beat them earlier in the year.
They
already beat them. So
I know
it's possible.
It's possible. All right, dude. Well, have a good week, brother.
All right, you too, man.
I don't know what the hell I'm going to do this week. Thank you for asking, you prick.
But sometimes it's okay to just not do anything.
Oh, that's a millennial mindset right there. I have to stay busy, man. Come on.
I always tell people that, like, every time someone tells me, like, oh, I'm having like a lazy Sunday or whatever, I was like, that's fine. You need some of those every once in a while.
Yeah, well, I got exposed to COVID last week, so I haven't been able to go to work for like since last Wednesday or some shit like that. So I've been having a lazy time. All I did was work out and lay around and watch movies, which is awesome. So. And I'm glad I got that mindset that I can sit around and watch movies without guilt anymore. It's wonderful, man. Well, have a good week, brother.
You too, man.
This has been the Thoroughly Wrong Project. If you disagree with anything, we don't care.
We don't care.
Later, man.
Later.
You have now experienced the Thoroughly Wrong Project with your podcast hosts, Lalo and Bob. We can now be found on Pandora Radio, Apple Podcasts, Podium Podcast, or by searching the Thoroughly Wrong Project to locate our YouTube channel. You can contact us directly by email at thoroughly-wrong@gmail.com or just leave a comment on any of our platforms. Until next time, thanks for spending your valuable time with us, and remember, always speak up and never be afraid to be thoroughly wrong.